Okay, good morning everybody and welcome to our free webinar for preparing for end of financial year. In today's webinar, we'll cover 8 key tips for a smooth end of financial year. We'll go over what a payment summary is, and we'll go through the order process and what you'll receive. We'll also go through terminations, some things that your consultant may or may not contact you about, what to do if there's a mistake after you have ordered, some due dates, and finally a summary. Okay, so 8 key tips. First tip, start planning and preparing now. This way you'll avoid any last minute issues and you'll meet all of your obligations. Next is to educate your stakeholders. Let other people who are involved in the process know what you'll need and when you'll need it. Try not to order your payment summaries too early. Don't forget to check your figures first. Number 4 is don't rush through the ordering process. It does change each year. And then check your reports thoroughly. It will save you a lot of time. Make sure you reconcile your reports and be sure not to order your payment summaries too late. Order forms are due to us by the 3rd of July. And finally, help us to help you. Our priority at the moment is payment summary production, and any non-urgent requests will be prioritised on a daily basis. So what is a payment summary? Previously known as a group certificate, a payment summary details the total payments made to an employee in the financial year and also shows the amount of tax that's been withheld from these payments. AussiePay electronically submit the information on the payment summaries to the ATO on or before the 14th of August 2015, which is in line with current legislation. So this is what a payment summary will look like. Your return address is listed on there, as well as the employee address. You'll also see the service dates within the current financial year, the tax file number, the total tax withheld from gross payments, including any lump sum payments that are visible on there. Next is the gross and lump sum amounts rounded to the nearest dollar. You'll also see grossed up RFB, reportable employer super contributions, a total allowance figure. Then there's a breakdown of each allowance displayed as an individual amount. So if your employee does have 3 allowances, there'll be 3 descriptions there and amounts. The deductions is displayed the same as the allowance section and also the workplace giving. You'll also see your employer details on there. And next we have an ETP payment summary, which is different. Again, your return address and your employee address is listed. Next, you'll see the date of payment. Again, their tax file number and the tax withheld from their ETP. There's a taxable component of the ETP and also the tax-free component. But please note this does not refer to the tax-free portion of a redundancy. It's rather a tax-free portion of invalidity payments. Next, you've got the ETP codes, which we will go through later in the webinar. And again, your employer details. Okay, ordering your payment summaries. So what will you receive? You'll get a year-end letter, which explains each form in a little bit of detail. You'll get an employer details form, an employee details form, a reportable RESC report, which is your reportable employer super contributions. You'll get an employee termination report, which will display all of your ETP payments. You'll get a payment summary reconciliation, a payment summary order form, and a year-end CD order form. We're going to go through each of these reports and what you need to do in detail during this webinar. The year-end letter. As you can see there, the year-end letter outlines due dates for informations, as well as providing a summary for each report that you've received. So all vital information is on that letter. Next is your employer details. You'll need to verify your employer name, address, your phone and fax numbers, your ABN, the payment summary signatory, and the industry code. These details are all sent to the ATO in reporting, so if there are any changes to this information, please notify your consultant. You can scan or fax the employer details form through with the changes. And just remember, all of these employer detail changes are to be submitted no later than the 30th of June. Here's an example of the employer details report. So your employer name should match your name registered with your ABN. The employer registered address is the business address. It's not necessarily your postal address. If it does differ, please let us know. Make sure your phone and fax numbers are up to date. And this is the ABN number that will appear on all of your payment summaries and that's sent to the ATO. So again, it is very important that it is correct. The NSIC code is the code that your entity fits into based on your primary business activity. This form does need to be signed by the payment summary signatory. Next is your employee details form. So the main things to check on here is your employee names, tax file numbers, addresses, start date, termination dates, and date of birth. So all of these details do appear on your employee's payment summary, but if your employee did start after the 1st of July, the start date will be used in your period of payments rather than the 1st of July. Some of your employees may be able to update their own addresses through the employee self-service function. If you haven't done so already, it's a good idea to ask your employees now to log on and check their address details are up to date. Maybe an employee got married and needs to change their name. And it's great to do that before you commence checking the reports. So here's an example of the employee details reports. First of all, confirm that any start dates are correct and that terminations have been processed. You can see that the termination has been processed. There'll be a date in there and the employee will be marked as inactive. You need to make sure that the TFN details have been supplied. All tax file numbers will be listed on that report. However, we can't show them at the moment for confidentiality reasons. If you do have a generic tax file number, like those ones that you can see there, you'll need to check with the employee to make sure that they have the right details. And addresses, they need to be correct. Again, they are reported to the ATO. And you should make sure that addresses don't contain any commas. The ATO don't accept commas in their files. And that all addresses have a state and a postcode. They should all also be Australian addresses. And again, if there's any changes to the information, all you need to do is notify your consultant by scanning or faxing the form back prior to the 30th of June 2015. Some of these details you are able to update yourselves if you do have access online. The next step is to check that your RESC is correct. So what is RESC? Reportable employer super contributions are contributions that you make that your employee has an influence over. Any employer contributions in addition to the compulsory SCG that are included in a company-wide policy may not need to be reported or included in the RESC. So what should be included? Salary sacrifice and any additional employer contributions that your employee has asked you to make. For example, an employee may have asked for a lower cash salary in return for higher employer contributions. Alternatively, what should not be included in RESC? Superannuation guarantee contributions or SGC, awards super contributions, and company-wide additional employer contributions. For example, your employee will not have a choice in how much you contribute. You could have a 15% company-wide super policy. So this will be made up of the 9.5% SGC and a 5.5% additional employer contribution. Again, that is not reportable. So what are you checking? You'll receive this report in Excel, and it'll show you if the RESC is being marked as reportable. So if the RESC reportable column is marked as yes, make sure that the total there matches the total on the payment summary reconciliation report. If you do have something there that is marked as a no and should be a yes, we are able to make those changes for you as well. All you need to do is contact your consultant. As a part of your year-end processing, you'll also need to reconcile your payment summary figures to your month-end payroll summary report and your general ledger. By reconciling both of these, you'll be able to ensure that your employees have received the accurate information on their payment summaries. And if you do find an issue, contact your consultant as soon as possible. They'll help you to resolve the issue in a timely manner. So what is the reconciliation report? It shows you exactly what will appear on your employees' payment summaries and where it will appear. A step that's often missed in that payment summary reconciliation report is the grossed up reportable fringe benefits, and they were due to us on the 22nd of May 2015. So if you haven't provided those figures to us, please do so as soon as possible. The vital information that we need is the employee family name, the employee given name, and the grossed up reportable fringe benefits amount. So we'll only include amounts over $2,000. And again, if these aren't included, the payment summaries won't be accurate for your employees. If you don't have any grossed up RFB, that's fine. You can still let us know. Allowances and deductions. Some allowances and deductions are required to appear as an individual item on your payment summary. The main factor in where the allowance or deduction should appear is not what you are calling it, but the description behind the reason for the payment. So an example of that, while you might label something a laundry allowance, you might be providing dry cleaning of business shirts. This would display differently on the payment summary to laundering protective clothing or uniforms. So some examples of allowances that might need to appear individually are phone or internet, kilometre or motor vehicle, or tool and laundry allowances. There are many different requirements for each allowance, and an allowance that you currently supply might not fit into any of those categories, so you might want further information or confirmation. Your consultant will be able to help you in this area. If you're unsure, we'll at least be able to direct you to the right place. Some examples of deductions that might need to appear individually are union contributions, professional association fees, or workplace giving. Again, much like allowances, there are many different requirements, so if you do have any questions, feel free to contact your consultant. You might have your own process to reconcile year-end. However, here's an example of a simple way that you can do this to your month-end reports. First of all, you'll receive your month-end reports followed by year-end. So when you get your summary for June, you'll be able to confirm your year-end reports. First of all, you'll need the total payments. This is an absolute gross. So this is payments to employees before any deductions or before tax or separation or termination payments are made. So from that year-to-date total, you can minus any ETP, lump sum A, B, D or E payments, or any pay codes marked as after tax. The next step is to minus the total deductions before tax, as that needs to come off the year-to-date figures. So the figure that you should reach after that process will match your total figure on your payment summary reconciliation report. The next step you can do is to check that the lump sum payments match against the ETP payments. And then to check the tax, you can confirm that the ETP tax and the tax match as well. Remember on here not to look at the month to date, you need to refer to the year to date. It might sound simple, but you'd be surprised. Next step, confirm the allowances that they match, and you're looking at the subtotal of the allowances that appear in the PAYG payroll summary. Next step is to confirm the deductions. And the RESC. You should have already done this, but this is a final check for you to make sure that the figures match. And while you're there, you can also check the reportable fringe benefits. Next, we move on to the order form. So it is quick and simple to complete. It's basically just a ticker box, but your order form is due by the 3rd of July. If there is a problem with your order form, you will be contacted by your consultant, and if there's anything missing, again, they will contact you. You might need to resubmit the form. So we'll aim to produce your payment summaries within 2 business days of receiving a completed order form. So the first thing to do on this form is to acknowledge that you've checked your employer details, your employee details, that the RFB is correct if it is applicable to you. Next is to check that you have verified your payment summary reconciliation totals, and if there's any changes to be made, you can tick this box here. You'll also see on there that there is a payment summary warning. It's just letting you know not to authorise the payment summaries until you have verified that the details are correct. If there are any changes to be made, we might be able to roll back the payment summaries for you. However, there will be a charge to do so. Then we move on to the ordering options. If you tick yes to number 1, you've confirmed that the information is true and correct, and you're requesting us to issue your payment summaries. If you tick no here, you're not ready to order your payment summaries just yet. Then we move on to the production options. You have 2 options here. The first option is online payment summaries and to print terminated employees. This will generate online payment summaries for all employees. However, past employees might have locked their access, so they will be printed for you. The next step is to print all payment summaries. Number 3, how do you want us to send you your employer information? You have 3 options there. You've got express post within Australia, you've got overnight courier to Sydney Metro, or we also this year have the option of electronic delivery. If you don't select anything there, all employer copies will be sent via express post. The last step is to let us know how you want your employees' payment summaries to be sent to you. Again, we can put it in with your overnight courier or your express post. Alternatively, we can mail them directly to your employees' home addresses. This form also needs to be signed by the payment summary signatory. If you're not sure who your signatory is, you can have a look at that on the employer details report. So this year we've included the year-end CD order form. It gives you an opportunity to get your order in early. If you do want a CD, simply fill out the form and return it to us before the 17th of July. We won't commence production on these until after the 14th of July. This makes sure that payment summary production remains our primary focus. So just a reminder that you won't be invoiced until your CD is ready to be sent, and postage is included in the price. We'll have a quick look at terminations. So obviously terminations are an inevitable part of processing a payroll, and most of the time they're straightforward, but sometimes there are exceptions. So there's several different sections on the payment summaries that terminations can fall into. You've got gross pay, employee termination payments or ETPs, and we've got lump sum A, B and D. When you do have an employee terminating, you might notice that your consultant's asking a few additional questions or some extra information from you. This is so that we can determine how the payments are to be processed and make sure that they're categorised correctly. It might take some time initially, but it does save a lot of time at this time of year. All payments and entitlements on termination will be included in the gross pay with the following exceptions: payments in lieu of notice, genuine redundancy, gratuity payments, and long service leave prior to 16th of August 1978. I have a quick description of ETPs. These are additional payments made to employees outside standard entitlements. Some reasons for ETPs might include payments in lieu of notice, payments made over the tax-free threshold, rostered days off or RDOs, or time in lieu, some of you might refer to it as, sick leave on termination, some compensation payments, or invalidity or death payments. Move on to lump sum A payments. These are related to genuine redundancy mostly, but also attracted to invalidity and approved early retirement schemes. Some leave entitlements also fall into this section, and they are taxed at a different rate to standard terminations. So as you can see here, some lump sum payments are long service leave on the accrual between the 16th of August 78 and the 17th of August 93. Annual leave for leave accrued prior to 18th of August 93. Long service leave due to genuine redundancy, invalidity or approved early retirement schemes, and annual leave due to genuine redundancy, invalidity or approved early retirement schemes as well. Lump sum B payments don't happen as often, and they're related to unused long service leave which is accrued prior to 16th of August 1978. Again, it attracts a different tax rate and is in a lump of its own. So lump sum B would be payable on all termination reasons other than genuine redundancy, invalidity or early retirement schemes. So that includes dismissal, resignation or death payments. Lump sum D payments, which a lot of you will be familiar with, they're the tax-free portion of a genuine redundancy or approved early retirement schemes up to a certain threshold. The threshold does depend on the number of completed years the employee has done. And lump sum D payments don't form part of their assessable income, but they still do appear on payment summaries. Okay, so we've got a list here of the ETP termination codes. This changed in 2012 with the ATO, and it is a point of confusion for most people. So any employee termination payment has to be coded, and as you can see there, we've got an R, an O, an S, a P, a D, a B, and an N. So this is probably why a consultant will ask you the most questions, so that we can make sure and take care of this for you. The most common codes here are R and O's because they relate to the most probable reason for termination. You are able to check the coding on each termination if they have received an employee termination payment or ETP. Anyone who has not received an ETP will not appear on this report, and you can see that the code's there as well as all of the lump sum payments. And again, remember that they can be tricky, and we will ensure that every effort is taken to break down and code your terminations correctly. So if your consultant does ask for more information, we are asking for a reason, and we want to ensure compliance for you and your company. As I said, the ETP coding was introduced in 2012 by the ATO. It also meant a change in production. So employees now receive one payment summary for each coded ETP. So you can have more than one ETP code. So employees might receive 2, some might receive more, but it is most often that they'll only receive 1. The employee with an ETP will also receive their standard payment summary. And you'll see on each ETP that the coding has been applied. So some things that your consultant might contact you about. We conduct many audits and compliance checks throughout the year, and of course this ramps up when we near the end of financial year. Obviously to ensure compliance and to keep you informed of any legislative changes. So already your consultant might have contacted you recently regarding date of birth for employees, some earning signatories, when you'll be processing your final payroll for the year, and the minimum wage increase. Some or all of these might not be specifically applicable to you, but if we do need further information, we will contact you shortly. So what do you do if there's a mistake? They happen to everyone. First of all, try not to panic. We will support you through the process. Gather as much information as you can. If you can identify employee names, pay codes, or dollar amounts, that will certainly help. Contact your consultant. We've said that many times throughout the webinar today. Sometimes a second set of eyes is helpful. It might turn out not to be an issue at all. If we do need to process an ad hoc payroll for you, make sure that they're approved in a timely manner. And if there are any changes to dollar figures, once we have produced your payment summaries, the year-end process will need to start again, so you'll get a new set of order forms and reports. Payment summary production is charged at your normal payroll processing fee. So for example, if you're charged $5 per employee per payroll with a minimum of $100, your charges might be as below. So if you've got 5 payment summaries, you've got 5 times $5, which does equal 25. However, you've got a minimum in place of $100. If you've got 25 employees, simply 25 by 5, you'll be charged $125. If you do pick up on an error after your payment summaries have been produced, we might be able to roll back the production of all of your payment summaries. To do this, depending on the reason for the rollback, there is a charge of $100 excluding GST and a second set of production costs. So to prevent this occurring, as we've gone through, you can reconcile your year-to-date figures correctly. You can ensure that all terminations have been processed and grossed up reportable fringe benefits have been provided. We've got a summary here of due dates. The first one is changes to employer and employee details. They're due by the 30th of June. Grossed up RFB, while still important, not as important as the employee details, was due on the 22nd of May. The payment summary order forms are due by 3rd of July. And late orders might also attract an express processing fee of $100. So we put this fee in place to ensure that we can guarantee your compliance and that your orders will be processed on time according to your delivery selections. So just a quick go over again. There was our 8 key tips to help you streamline and reduce stress. A reminder to check your employer and employee details, to check your RESC and grossed up reportable fringe benefits, to go over your allowances and deductions and make sure that they're in the right spots, reconcile your year-to-date figures, don't forget to submit your order form, and remember you can contact your consultant. Contact them as soon as possible if you think there's an error. Okay, that concludes our webinar for today. If anyone has any questions, feel free to type them into the questions box. We will be making a video of this available to you this afternoon. Okay, so we've got one question here. What happens if an employee has moved overseas? We do need an Australian address to post the payment summary. However, if you do know that employee has moved, we can post that to you. You'll also receive employer copies of your payment summaries, so you can email that to them. An electronic copy is fine. Does that answer your question, Judy? Okay, the next question that we've received is, when will I receive your reports, your year-end reports or your month-end reports? They're ready when you are. So if you are sure that you don't have any more payrolls or adjustments to make in this financial year, there's still 7 days to go. You can request your reports now. Alternatively, they will be sent out to you prior to the 30th of June automatically. So again, if you are ready for them, simply ask your consultant. Does that help, Sharon? Okay, does anyone else have any questions? Okay, I think we've explained everything. I think we'll wrap up the webinar for today. If you do have any questions that I haven't been able to answer here today, please contact your consultant. If they're not able to help you, I will be available to answer anything that you need. So thank you for your time, and I hope that you have a happy and stressful end of financial year.